Welcome to People Love Process. In this movie, I want to show you how I created specific art for a label design for a distilling company client of mine. And we're also going to cover a couple other pieces of art where we utilize the same methodology. You've seen me use Pathfinder many times before to do simple shape building techniques. And we're going to handle our base art in much the same way, but we'll use a specific feature that I don't use a whole lot, and that's called Divide. I decided to document this project because it's an ideal context for this methodology and was inspired by a comment one of you posted on a previous movie on my channel. So with that said, let's jump into it. And first off, I just have to say, thank you for posting comments. If you think there's something I should have considered, those lead to new content that, in this case, this is a perfect and ideal question that actually came up in a real-world project. So I get to show you a real-world project where I utilized it in it. So that'll give you a better context of how you could put it to use within your own creative workflow. Now, if we look at Pathfinder, and by the way, I should point out that if you go to Illustrator under Preferences in General, normally I have Show Tooltips turned off just to make recording cleaner and look nice. And I've gone ahead and enabled it in this movie because I can't honestly remember all the names of the Pathfinder methods in the bottom row of the palette. The ones I use pretty much every day are the top four, but I usually don't use all of them. I use Unite and I use minus front all day long and intersect every so often. This one, like very rarely, but I have used it. The ones down below, not so much, but since somebody asked me this question, I had a project come up after they asked me the question. I go, you know what? This would be perfect to showcase this feature because it does work well in a certain context of design. And that's what I want to walk you through here. Now, all the methods in the Pathfinder palette are called Boolean methods. I'm not completely sure what Boolean means. Maybe it has something to do with the geometry behind the methodology, but that's the technical name for these features. Of course, Illustrator names these Unite. This one's minus front. You can tell an engineer named that one. This one's intersect, and this one's exclude. All those are great names. Minus front, who thinks that way? That's like Yoda named it. We will call it minus front, you know. And then you go down to the bottom and you have divide, you have trim, merge, crop, outline, and minus back, another dumb one an engineer named. These mostly I don't use. The one I use the most out of all these would be this one and every so often trim. So they do have their context of use and you're not going to go to them every single day. These ones you probably will if you do a lot of shape building. So what you see in front of you is House Vodka label that I did for Sinister Distilling. They're here in Oregon, and they love this label. They kind of wanted it Art Deco of sorts, so that's why it has that kind of look and feel to it. Here's the specific label all flattened out. And they asked me, hey, can you take the old grappa label you did and style it so it looks kind of like House Vodka in terms of the formatting? And I go, okay, and I can do that. And they say, and Howie, who's the master distiller, the marketing director, and her husband are the one that started the company, both Deluxe Brewing and Sinister Distilling. And Howie, her husband, is the one that does he's the brewmaster of sorts, both for craft beer and doing all the distilling. And they love kind of retro cars. And he saw this engine block and he said, could you use the color of the engine block in the design? I'm like going, okay, probably not my choice, but sure, I'll do that. And so I kind of based the design I came up with, once again, off the format of the House Vodka label and the coloring that they requested me to use. Now, do I think this is a great coloring? I think grappa, which is derived from grapes, I think it'd look better to kind of lean in that direction. But I did this, and they're going, yeah, I'm not sure that's working. I go, yeah, I don't think it works that well. And they said, well, our marketing director came up with an idea, and that's a red flag for me every time. Every time that happens. And with the dawn of AI now, I get a lot of AI images sent to me. So I'm just going to show you what they had sent. And here's one, and you can tell this is AI generated because of the type. It never gets type right. And look at the spokes. Looks like these were melted in a fire. And it's all these images mashed together. And I'm going, okay, I don't know what to think about this. Why did you send me this? What's your thinking behind it? And they said, well, we just like all the color. I go, okay, well, I can do color. And they just wanted it to be exciting and colorful. I'm going, okay, nothing in your brand model is that way, but that's fine. This is a specialty distilled spirit, so we could do this. I kind of like color shapes all working together, kind of like down here. I go, I can work with that, but I'm going to come up with something that aligns better with your brand. So I don't like the fact that this keeps happening. I've turned down now like 6 about projects where somebody comes to me with some AI generated logo. Can you clean this up for me? No. You enjoy your AI generated logo. And by the way, I always tell them this, you're not going to be able to copyright it. So there's that. Okay, so what I want to do is create a design that's more aligned with their brand. So I'm going to turn this off, turn this on, that is. And both Deluxe Brewing and Sinister Distilling use a spade as their brand mark of sorts. We don't always lock it up with the logo type. I use the logo type alone most of the time, but this is what I want to play off of. And we need to get the label proportions. So I'm going to turn this layer on, and I'm going to zoom out just a little so you can see the proportions of the label. And this is where I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Document Setup. Oh, actually, first we want to go to View, and we want to turn on Artboards. And this is something else that I normally have turned off when I'm recording a video like this, because it just looks cleaner on screen without having the artboard. But in this case, I want you to see the exact proportions. This isn't a huge label. It's only about 7 inches wide and so many inches tall. And we're going to go now to File. We're going to go down to Document Setup, and we're working in inches here. And I'm going to type in 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. That'll become the bleed, because the label that we're doing is going to bleed the artwork off all sides 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to turn this on because I want to work off of the spade, but I don't want curves in it as shown here. I want it to be more geometric. So I'm going to be thinking in shapes like this. And let's go ahead and zoom in just on this spade shape here. I'll go ahead and turn this image off. That was just to give you the idea of why I'm doing this. These are just rectangles, so I can select the corners on these rectangles and use the corner widget, and that just gives me the shape pretty quick. Then I can just select both of these and go Unite with Pathfinder. And then this down here will represent the bottom. It's just a triangle shape like that. So pretty easy to make that kind of geometric shape here. But I know I want the pattern to flow at the bottom of the label, and I want that even spacing. So I copied this shape and figured out that spacing so it's evenly distributed across the bottom of the label here. So I just wanted to show you that. Now, the tile that we're going to be using is going to be this big. So we're not going to do the whole pattern under the bottom. We're going to create a pattern limiting it to this tile, and then we'll just copy it and move it along so it bleeds off the edge like that. So I just wanted to explain that so you understand what we're doing when we get to that point. So let's go ahead and turn this off. These are all the shapes that I just, once again, I didn't use any Bezier curves in this. I didn't use the, just use shape building tools, specifically the rectangle tool, you know, just to start creating shapes. Super easy. Or I'd create circles, and then because it's or square, and then I'd rotate it 45 degrees and just aligned it with the shape of the spade that I already made graphic. So this is all we're going to do now is we're going to take this, we're going to select everything. Right now you can see it doesn't have a fill. I'm just going to go ahead and you can give it a fill. We'll just give it all a white fill. And then I'm going to go to divide here with all these selected and just click divide. And it looks like nothing's really happened, but it's divided every overlap into its own independent shape now. So if I deselect, I can just select anything outside of our defined size for our tile and just delete it like this. I'll go down here, select these, delete it, select these, delete it, and select these. This is essentially the tiled art that we want. But now there's some editing, and it was at this point, as I started, you know, getting rid of stuff, I decided, you know what, I need to make a few more edits. Let's go ahead and zoom in here. And one of the edits is I decided, you know, I probably want to make lop off from here going across like that to get rid of some of these shapes. So I would do that. I would go ahead and select shapes. Right now it's group, so you'll ungroup it. And by the way, when you use divide, it does group, so you'd have to ungroup it. That way you can isolate a specific shape, have a shape on top like this, select it, and then you can go minus front. And you've seen me do that a lot where I'm kind of editing shapes as I'm doing shape building. We'll do one more. Maybe it's this shape here, and we go minus front like that. So it's that kind of editing I go back into. But most of the work was done within a few seconds using divide. If I turn this on, this is what I ended up with. And I also noticed when I built the original shapes that this almost formed a diamond shape right here. So all I did is I moved this one over, and then I took these two shapes and just decided this would be a good way to kind of seamlessly work. Not only will the pattern itself repeat because of these shapes, but this diamond makes a nice little intersection between each of the segments of the pattern. So I did that as well in terms of manually editing. What I ended up with is this, and now all of these shapes, and I like the fact that the spade kind of pokes up out of that confined area that we're going to be utilizing for the pattern. So let's zoom out a little bit, and the tonal families we're going to use, which I just created a nice kind of set of colors that I thought worked together, and we just want to go ahead and color this. And so let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. We can move Pathfinder back down. We'll put it back down here. And this is where I'll just select shapes. And by the way, that create swatch color info feature that Adobe, I was hoping would create drag and drop swatches so I could tile a nice little tonal family like this. Didn't happen, so I'm going to continue doing it manually like I'm showing here. But this is where I'll just go into shapes like this, and I'll just start figuring out, and I want to balance these colors so not any one color has like dominates the composition. I want them to all kind of balance with one another and work well together. So this is where I would just go through and I'd figure out what were going to be the darkest colors. And I don't want it to be identical on both sides. Since this is divided in half, it's easier. It looks better, that is, if you pay attention to how you're balancing stuff like this. And so this, all I'm going to do is go through and color it. You know, I might make this that color. Maybe this is this color. And as I'm doing this, I'll realize, I got too much yellow or too much turquoise or whatever. So I go back and I continue to edit it and continue to make decisions on what looks better. Now, I'm not going to spend time doing this because, like a good cooking show, I have it already pre-built. So I'm going to turn this on. But this is all I did in order to create this pattern. So we have this whole pattern. If I double click into it, each of these were just, it started with this. And then all I did is just copied it over and moved it all the way to the edge until it got to the center. This is why I figured out the spacing ahead of time. So this would end right where this cuts in half. And that will become the bottom edge of this label. And I think that's going to work really well. Let's go ahead and zoom out just a little bit so you can see the label here. And this is all the primary type we have on it. So I'm utilizing some of those colors up above. I think that nice kind of purplish color kind of goes better with grappa, and picked a nice typography treatment that works better. Secondary type. And then we have tertiary type, which is their batch number and year's age that they can mark up manually on the label. The government warning, little description with the master distiller's signature there, the logo type up in the left-hand corner. So it's a fun way to do this. Now, as I was working on this, I'm going, you know what? I should reinforce it even more. And so I just made a nice little brand, playing off of their brand mark once again, that complements the pattern below. And if you see this in real world context, I use yellow images to mock up. And thankfully, they have the exact bottle that my client uses. So I'm able to mock it up so it looks photorealistic. And if I turn this on, and this is one reason why on the hide art boards, I usually do that. And we'll just, for the sake of getting a better shot, we'll go document setup. I'm going to get rid of the blade. And that's kind of why I do it. So you get to see it in all of its glory and mocked up on the actual bottles it's going to do. So Divide is a great way to quickly do what I like to call patchwork. That's just a name I gave it because it kind of looks like a patchwork quilt of sorts in a digital format. But again, it's not hard. Let's take a look at a couple other examples. Now, right now I'm working in the midst of working on my client work. I'm developing another micro course for LinkedIn Learning on patterns. And so, of course, anything I'm working on, I try to work into my course just because it's easier to kind of juggle a couple things at the same time. So again, are all of these shapes hard to create? Well, no, these are just elliptical shapes, rectangle shapes. And those shapes are here. Here's the rectangle tool. Here's the ellipse tool. So it's super easy to create something like this. So you could select all these like this. And if you go to Pathfinder and we'll go to Divide, we'll click Divide. Now, these are all going to just be limited to this primary kind of diamond shape here. So we can just drag and drop across the ones we don't need and just delete them. Like that, no big deal. Pretty easy. The more you can select at once, the faster it kind of goes. Like that. And go down to here, select all of these, get rid of them. and that one. So it's not hard to to trim off what you don't need. If I select all these, I always like to give it a fill. It makes selection of the shapes a lot easier, like that. And I leave the outline here because, again, I'm going to use a tonal family like this. And so I can select shapes and color them and kind of experiment. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to spend the time to do it, but I'll show you what I ended up with, and that is this design here, which has everything colored, and I also use tints of those colors. So we have a dark here and a light here, we have a light here and a dark here. So you can think in tints, and if you're using global colors, all of these colors here, you see the white triangle in the bottom right. If I click into this kind of lime green, it's a global color. So if you have global checked within your color swatch you create, then that allows you to go to the color palette, and then you can set a tint of that color, whether it's 45% or maybe you want to go 70%. That's how you do tints in Illustrator, and they have to be global colors in order to do that. A non-global color, let's say the magenta that I usually build with, if I go to color here, oh, well, that's interesting. Oh, no, it's the browns selected. Let's do this. There we go. So if it's a non-global color, it'll just show you the color break. It won't give you the T with the tints because it's not global. If I go here and I go to color, you can see T for tints, and then you can slide this to whatever tint you want. So make sure you use global colors. It's a good creative habit to get in. So why am I showing you this? Well, because I like this. I just thought it's too many colors. So I thought a more limited color palette would look good. So we can turn off this. And I think if we just use the dark blue and maybe the light blue and this lighter lime green color. By the way, is this the same color? Oh, I have the color there twice. We don't even need this one. We can get rid of that. I didn't notice that. Okay, so we're going to just color this with only those limits of the three colors. So again, it's about balancing it. So I'd select this and maybe this and this as I'm going down here. We'll select this, top of the eye, bottom of the eye, this little arch, this piece, this. If you haven't noticed, it's kind of like a graphic face of sorts. At least that's what I'm thinking. Do the side of the nose. Maybe it's the bottom of the eye here, top of the eye over here. This like that. And we'll do this one and this one. And we'll do the top teeth over here. I'll use the eyedropper, sample my swatch. I think we need to color that one in like that. Now we'll select ones that we want to be kind of the blue color, the light blue, under his nose, maybe on his cheek, here, here, here. And we'll sample those. That looks good. I think this one needs to be the dark color. We can select everything that's left and color that green. So I think that'd look pretty good to kind of simplify it. So instead of being full color like this, I think this kind of reads a little better. So what could you do with this? Well, I think you could create a pretty cool pattern. So if I took here and just made all of them common with the darkest color being the dark blue, then did the second color and then a tint to that second color and created 4 variations, whether it's purple, blue, aqua, and this kind of orange color. And notice it's not a diamond. It's not sitting on its point like I had on this one, because if you're creating a pattern, it's easier to do it in 90 degrees because the default pattern tile is called grid, and that's a square. I've offset the edge of this half the distance of the gap I have in between the art because it'll create the gap that goes around all the artwork. So I can select all this, drag and drop it here, deselect, and now we have the pattern swatch. So let's go ahead and double click into this pattern swatch, and notice it automatically creates the pattern because of the bounding box we offset. But you don't want that embedded in your art, so we'll select it, delete it. Now the pattern's ready to go. I'm not even sure what to call this. Let's call it a, we'll be really creative and call it graphic face. Probably should have came up with a better name. And then to get back to the artboard, you can go out of the isolation. This is kind of like isolation mode, being in the pattern tool. You can back out up here in the nav, or you can double click the background if there is a blank area, but this is all covered. Or the easiest way, I think, is just hit escape. So we'll hit escape. We're back on the artboard. We don't want this layer. We're going to turn on this layer now. We'll go ahead and select this, and we're going to go to Appearance panel, and we're going to select the fill color, and we'll select the pattern, and it fills the background shape I selected with that pattern. And then to get the diamond back, we'll go to Rotate tool. You want to turn off Transform Object. You only want the pattern to rotate, not the object the pattern fills. And here you can see Transform. We'll type in 45. We can preview it like that. Let's go minus so it goes the right way. There we go. And okay, so that's how you can create a pretty cool pattern utilizing the divide feature. This would make a killer, like a lounge shirt. I'd love to have this on a lounge shirt. Okay, let's dive into one last one. Once again, because I've been creating a lot of patterns over the last week or so for this new course I'm doing, I've thought about Divide a lot, and it worked great for that. And here's another one. I'm trying to, this one's going to show up in a movie called Simple Patterns in the course, because what's the easiest shape in Illustrator to create? Well, a rectangle, like the bounding box here, and that uses the rectangle tool. What's the other easy one? Circles. I'm always saying this. Where do you start? Start with circles. Those are the easiest, in my opinion. And that's what we're going to do here. Now, the circles that are outlined in blue, these are the ones I wanted to divide. The ones that are solid blue, those are shapes that are going to sit on top of the divided shapes we're going to run the Pathfinder method on. So I'm going to select these here, and we'll go ahead and just fill them with white. And we're going to go down to here, and we're going to click Divide. It's going to group it. Notice in the appearance it's grouped, so you'll want to ungroup it. So it's just mixed objects now. And those mixed objects will make a decision on how we want those to look. So we're going to go ahead, and I will... These are the colors I'm using in this pattern. This dark brown will be the background, but that won't be in the pattern itself. We'll use, this will be the orange color, so we'll establish that like this. Let's go ahead and establish this one over here. This will be kind of this golden color, no outline, of course. And this one up here will be this kind of cream color fill, no outline, like that. And then we can just decide what else do we need. Well, I want this to kind of fall through the background, so I can just delete that one. This one I want to fall through to the background color. Same on this shape, and same on this shape. On this shape here, I want this to be colored gold. On the shape out here, I want it to be cream. I want this one to be gold. We'll do cream here. This shape can go to the background color. And then we'll take this, that'll be gold. This shape will be gold. This will show through, so we don't need that. This will show through. This one will be like that. This will show through. And this will show through. Same with the one up here. Actually, that one will make orange. and this one will be gold, and then this one will be cream, and this one will show through to the background. We'll make this the orange. This one will show through. Same with that one. We'll select that. Color this one that color. This one will punch through the gold to the background. This will be the cream color. We will do the gold here, and this will punch through. Now all we have to do is focus on the ones on top here. This will be that color. This will be gold, gold, gold. This will be cream. That'll be the darker burnt orange. We'll do this one orange, this one, and this one. And then we'll make this cream, cream. Once again, I'm trying to balance the colors here. Normally, I'm not talking to myself while I'm doing this. I'm just paying attention to where color's being applied. And I'll do that one gold, like that. Oh, forgot this one down here. We'll do that gold as well. So, of course, when I was working with the elliptical shapes, I figured out the repeat. So I'm not doing that as I'm building it. I kind of figure that out before I divide anything because I want to make sure it's going to work. And it's as easy as if I select all this and I just go ahead and group these elements, select the bounding box and clone it, Command-C, Command-F. If you have the contextual menu bar, you can select it and hit duplicate on that. I just never use that. Then I snap to the corner. I have Smart Guides turned on, Command-U. Bring it down here. You can see it comes in here nice. If I slide it over, it's going to come in the bottom left nice. And if I slide it up, it's going to come into the top right nice. So the repeat's going to work. Now that we have this, I can just select it, drag it, drop it into the swatches palette. We can click into this pattern swatch now, go to the tile tool, click on it, and you can see it's showing us how it's repeating now, and this isn't working. But the reason why I bring a bounding box in is because I just increase the size of the tile tool, then I bring it in, snap to the bottom, bring it down, snap it to the top. You can see how the pattern's coming in and fitting. So you can figure all that out before you even get into the pattern mode, like that. Once I have that figured out, then I'll just select the bounding box itself and delete it because we don't want that to be part of the pattern. And this one, I did figure out a name. It's just called Orbs. Once we have the pattern figured out, I can go ahead and hit the escape key to get back to the artboard. We'll turn off this layer, turn on this layer. I'm going to select it, and on this layer, I want this to be a dark brown, like that. If we go to the Appearance panel, you see we have that fill color. We're going to add another fill in the Option menu, Add New Fill. It'll just duplicate. Let's go ahead and pull this out. It'll just duplicate the previous fill. So we'll take the top one and we'll fill it with the pattern. And now we got a really cool pattern all worked out utilizing the divide feature to build it in simple shapes like the ellipse tool to create it. Again, with patterns, not that I'm focusing on patterns, but I might as well show you since we have this one done. Making sure your pattern layer is selected in the Appearance palette. Let's say you go, well, the objects are too big. I want it smaller. Well, you just go with that layer, pattern fill layer selected. You just go to the Scale tool, double click it. Make sure to turn off Transform Objects. You don't want the object with the fill in it to be transformed. You just want to transform the pattern. And maybe you decide this would look better if it's 85% smaller and you can preview it. That's how you can scale a pattern. If you want to rotate it, maybe you don't want it to be at the same orientation that you built it. That's fine. Do the same thing. Double click on the rotate tool, and you can rotate it however you want. So this will just change how it looks. Maybe you want it like that. That's fine. Click it. And what if you want to just bump this? Like, let's say you're looking at this shape here, and in the context of what you're creating, you want this to bump over about, I don't know, just a little bit more. How do you do that without moving the shape the fills in? Well, this is where it's a little bit unintuitive in Illustrator, and that is you hold the tilde key down. If you look at your escape key right below it, looks like a key with a snake laying on its back. That's the tilde key. If you hold tilde down and you just move this, it doesn't move the shape. It moves that pattern fill within the shape. So that's how you would adjust it. And actually, this works better than it does on Adobe Illustrator 2024, because in Adobe Illustrator 2024, everything just disappears, and you don't. It looks like you're moving your object, but you're not. It's just moving the fill, but it looks like you're moving the object. So they've actually improved that just a little bit, but it's kind of hidden away in under the tilde key option you have to hold down. So this type of patchwork shape building lends itself to a specific aesthetic, and I think it fit really well with the label design I created. I just named the style patchwork, but in reality, you could think of it as mosaic if you wanted to. Better yet, maybe it's like stained glass. That'd actually be a good usage for it. You could create, ooh, that graphic face would make a killer stained glass window. I don't think I could talk my wife into that, but nonetheless, it'd be kind of fun to do that with stained glass, and then everywhere the shapes are interacting, that'd be the leading. That'd be kind of cool. I've always thought stained glass would be fun to learn how to do. So I encourage you to try this approach yourself. See what you can come up with, what you can create. Think in simple shapes. Don't make it overly complicated. It doesn't have to be just geometric shapes, though. If you think like a traditional stained glass design, it can be more free-flowing in terms of the shapes they create and cut out of glass. Some of those are pretty extensive, and you could use this methodology to create the separate pieces to color. If you enjoy this type of created content, I'd really appreciate it if you give this movie a like. That actually helps the algorithm for some reason. Don't ask me how. That's what Google tells us content creators. So share it with others if you think this would be helpful to them or you think they'd enjoy it. I'd appreciate that as well. Until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you improve your own creative process.